chapter of the awakening. Deuteronomy, which is what I call the chapter of the awakening. Deuteronomy chapter 30, the chapter of the awakening. Deuteronomy 28 is the chapter of the curse. Deuteronomy 30 is the chapter of the awakening. And let's take a look at Deuteronomy chapter 30 from verses 1 through 10. And the book of the law reads, "And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations whither Yahweh thy Elohim have driven thee, and shalt return unto Yahweh thy Elohim, and shalt obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thy heart and with all thy soul, that then Yahweh thy Elohim will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither Yahweh thy Elohim have scattered thee. If any of thine be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will Yahweh thy Elohim gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. And Yahweh thy Elohim will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it. And he will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers. And Yahweh thy Elohim will circumcise thy heart and the heart of thy seed, to love Yahweh thy Elohim with all thy heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. And Yahweh thy Elohim will put all these curses upon thine enemies and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. And thou shalt return and obey the voice of Yahweh, and do all his commandments which I command thee this day. And Yahweh thy Elohim will make thee plenteous in every work of thy hand, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy land, for good. For Yahweh will again rejoice over thee for good, as he rejoiced over thy fathers, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy Elohim, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which are written in this book of the law. And if thou turn unto Yahweh thy Elohim with all thy heart and with all thy soul." Amen. Praise the Most High. That was Adabarim, chapter 30, verses 1 through 10. Now we turn to Yeshaya. Yeshaya, chapter 58. Yeshaya, chapter 58, verses 12, 13, and 14. And the prophecy reads, "And they that shall be of thee shall build the old waste places. Thou shalt raise up the foundations of many generations. And thou shalt be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of paths to dwell in. If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of Yahweh honorable, and shalt honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words, then shalt thou delight thyself in Yahweh. And I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed thee with the heritage of Yaakov thy father, for the mouth of Yahweh have spoken." Isaiah 58, verses 12 to 14. Now we turn to Acts. Acts of the Apostles, chapter 13, verses 38 to 44. Acts of the Apostles, chapter 13, verses 38 to 44. Our morning reading before we get into our study on the Shabbat. "Be it known unto you, therefore, men and brethren, that through this man is preached unto you the forgiveness of sin. And by him all that believe are justified from all things, from which you could not be justified by the law of Moses. Beware, therefore, lest that come upon you which is spoken of in the prophets. Behold, ye despisers, and wonder and perish. For I work a work in your days, a work which ye shall in no wise believe, though a man declare it unto you. And when the Yahudim were gone out of the synagogue, the Gentiles besought that these words might be preached to them the next Sabbath. Now, when the congregation was broken up, many of the Yahudim and religious proselytes followed Paul and Barnabas, who, speaking to them, persuaded them to continue in the grace of Yahweh. And the next Sabbath day came almost the whole city together to hear the word of Yahweh. Acts chapter 13, verse 38 to 44. Now we turn in the epistle of the New Testament that was addressed to the Hebrews. The epistle addressed to the Hebrews chapter 8, Hebrews chapter 8, verses 6 through 12. Hebrews chapter 8, verses 6 through 12. But now hath he obtained a more excellent ministry, by how much also he is the mediator of a better covenant, which was established upon better promises. For if that first covenant had been faultless, then should no place have been sought for the second. For finding fault with them, he said, behold, the days come, saith Yahweh, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Yasharal and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith Yahweh. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith Yahweh. I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their hearts, and I will be to them a Elohim, and they shall be to me a people. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahweh, for all shall know me, from the least to the greatest. For I will be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and their iniquities will I remember no more. Praise the Most High Yah for the salvation that is wrought in Messiah. Now we turn to the book of Revelation, the revelation of the Messiah, Yahweh Shai. Revelation chapter 14, Revelation chapter 14, verses 6, 7, and 12. Revelation chapter 14, verses 6, 7, and 12. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear Yahweh, and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth, and the sea, and the fountains of waters. And there followed another angel, saying, Babylon. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. I'm sorry. First, verse 12. I was just getting into it. Verse 12. I'm sorry. Verse 12. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of Yahweh and the faith of Yahweh Shai. Praise the Most High God. Sorry about that. That was Revelation chapter 14, verse 6, 7, and 12. Now we turn to Revelation chapter 11. Revelation chapter 11 from verses 15 to 19. And the seventh angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven saying, The kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Yah and of his Messiah, and he shall reign forever and ever. And the 24 elders which sat before Yahweh on their seats fell upon their faces and worshipped Yahweh, saying, We give thee thanks, O Yahweh al Shaddai, which art and wast and art to come, because thou hast taken to thee thy great power and hast reigned. And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged, that thou shouldest give reward unto thy servants the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear thy name, small and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth. And the temple of Yahweh was opened in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament, and there were lightnings and voices and thunderings and an earthquake and great hail. Revelation chapter 11, verses 15 to 19, the seventh trumpet. Last but not least, we finish today's morning reading with Isaiah chapter 66, back to Yeshaya chapter 66. And we read in chapter 66 from verse 22, 23, and 24. For as the new heavens and the new earth which I will make shall remain before me, saith Yahweh, so shall your seed and your name remain. And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith Yahweh. And they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men that have transgressed against me. For their worm shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched, and they shall be an abhorring unto all flesh. Praise the Most High Yah. Thus ends the morning's reading of the word of Yah. May the Most High bless the readers and hearers of this word. Praise his name. So we are looking at the sixth trumpet of the seven trumpets of Revelation. And we are on the sixth trumpet. And I wanted to go through Daniel chapter 12. I want to do it better by the grace of the Most High than I did it last night. I think I was rushing through it a bit last night. And as we're getting ready to go through it, I want to say we have to understand certain things. One of the things we should understand is that the great power that Asatan is using in these last days, as we have studied prophecy, to dominate the earth and control every facet of society is the Roman Church. That's where it all begins, in Rome. The Roman Church, of course, is in the area of the sons of Japhet. It's in Europe. It's in Rome, Europe, and Italy. And the Bible speaks about, at the end, Gog and Magog being the leaders of the factions that will come against the city of Jerusalem, the New Jerusalem, where he's going to reconstitute his true Israelite people. And so there is a habit, and I'm about to say, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just telling the truth. That's all I ever try to do. I'm just telling the truth. Praise the Most High. Yeah. But in our society, we live in this last days because of the dominance of the sons of Japhet in the culture of these last days. We have to admit we have a Eurocentric culture. That means our culture is dominated by habits of people that come from Europe. Our language is from Europe. We speak the English language. Even the Spanish language is they call it a language. They call it a Latin type language, because many of the European languages are broken off from some form of Latin. And so the Eurocentric culture is the dominant culture in the last days of Earth's history where we live. You know, that being the case, what ends up happening is over the course of time, the European tries to take credit for everything that is on the earth that they feel is good. So, for example, Christopher Columbus came from Europe and he came to North America. There were already nations of Indians here, and yet we read in our history books, and we're always taught that Christopher Columbus discovered America. You understand what I'm saying? This is a prime example of what I'm saying. So, Christopher, how could you discover something where people were already there? How could you be the discoverer of something that was already existing? The real people that discovered are people that first came there. Would that make sense? So the people that first came there, the tribes of what we call Indians that were already there, they were the true people that discovered this land. But because we're in a Eurocentric culture that's dominated by Europeans, they say, and they teach us in all our history books, Christopher Columbus discovered America in 1492. Right, but that's not true. So here we are in the last days, and our eyes are being opened to these things. And so that I brought that up to say, one of the things I wanted to say about this subject that we're talking about here is so that in our culture, in our days, the European man makes European culture world culture, and European history, world history, and everything is discovered by the European. They say they discovered philosophy with the Greeks. They think that they discovered mathematics, or they think they discovered medicine and all of this, and they come out of Europe with these things, and they find that these people, they are, oh, these are the great discoverers. But when you look back and you understand history, you know that, you know, they didn't really discover a lot of these things. Like, for example, ancient Egyptians were performing operations long before, while the people in Europe were living in caves. The people in Egypt and in ancient Babylon were already performing operations. Being able, mathematics was actually founded in the Babylonian kingdom, and it was founded, you know, in what we call now the Middle East and in Egypt. They were already performing and doing heavy mathematics before people even understood what it was. But you see, we when we study mathematics in school, they'll point to German mathematicians and things of this nature. So it's just like they make European culture and European history like the whole world history. But because of the great whore coming out of Europe and the worldwide impact of the great whore, it is quite necessary for us to understand some European history in terms of the Bible. We should understand some of it in terms of the Bible, because in order to understand some of the prophecies regarding the beast, we need to understand where the beast come from, how it came to be, so on and so forth. Does that make sense, brothers and sisters? And so we have to look at some European history. Now, just I bring all that up so that we understand that the Bible itself is centered on the nation of Israel and the people of the nation of Israel, which today what we would consider in America the so-called African American. But really, the Negro is the original Israelite. And of course, there's also tribes scattered in different parts of the earth. We know that because in the Bible showed us that. And so the Most High is, and I want to make sure I'm saying this as carefully and as charitably, I guess, as I can. The Most High does not care. He has no care or acknowledgement of those fake Jews that are in Palestine right now. He does not care nor acknowledge any of these fake religions that are out here, the Christian, Judaism, or Islam. He only brings those up as they relate to their effect, mostly the oppressive acts on his people. Okay, that's how he brings them up in the Bible. And so history is really the Most High, from the Most High's perspective. His eye, he calls his people, right? He calls his people the apple of his eye. He said, "He that toucheth you touches the apple of his eye." That's not my words; those are the Most High's words. He says, "He that touches you touches the apple of his eye." Okay, so that's the way he thinks about his people. and Jerusalem is where he's going to set his throne. The true Jerusalem is where he's going to set his throne. Okay, so this is what he cares about, obviously. And then he says, we just read this morning, where he said in the word that he delivered the Israelites. And well, let's look at it. Let's look at it. Exodus chapter 19. We read it just a few minutes ago. Exodus chapter 19. When he was getting ready to enter into the covenant with Jacob's children, from which we also descend. In Exodus chapter 19, he said in verse, let's see, he said, from verse 4 to verse 6, "Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians." He's talking to the Israelites, the children of Jacob. And he says, "Ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, how I bare you on eagle's wings and brought you," that is you Israelites, "unto myself. Now therefore, you Israelites, if you will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me," that is unto the Creator, "above all people, for all the earth is mine. And ye," that is you Israelites, "shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel." So he's telling us that he has a special people that he has acknowledged. He acknowledges this special people, and these people are the apple of his eye. Now, I said all that to say, that being the case, It is absolutely necessary, though, because of the development of the dragon's opposition to the nation of Israel and to the people of the nation. It's because of his attack, because of his rage against the true Israelites. And we have seen his rage being carried out in how our brothers are being jailed, imprisoned, shot in the street, hung from trees, castrated, experimented on, and more. We've seen all of his rage. We've seen the devil's rage, Asatan's rage against the nation of Israel and against the men particularly. But we must understand in history how this entity rises up, and then we can see how it affects the earth. We can see in its effect on the earth how Most High is going to turn on it and destroy it, and how it's affecting us, because we live in a Eurocentric culture. Okay, this is prophesied. This is not something that should surprise us, because the scripture talks about Gog and Magog in the last day. So we understand that the powers of the north will rule the earth right before the people of the earth are destroyed off of it, sinners are destroyed off of it, and the kingdom of the Most High is set here. So that's why we have to look at Daniel chapter 12 before we go to Revelation chapter 10. And we're looking at Daniel 12, we're going to be looking at some European history. Okay, we're going to be looking at some European history. So let's look at this. And I should have explained this to you more thoroughly last night. And please forgive me that I did not do it then, but I'm going to try to redeem it now and make sure that I give you the best opportunity to try to understand these things. Let's go into Daniel chapter 12, and let's start Daniel chapter 12, and let's begin at verse 1 and read verse 1 and 2 of Daniel chapter 12, verse 1 and 2. And at that time shall Mikael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. Okay, so here again, we're talking about, first off, he says, at that time. In order to understand what time he's talking about, we really would need to read chapter 11. But we're not going to do that now, because he says, and at that time, we're talking about the time of the end, obviously. Mikael, who is Messiah, Mikael is the Messiah. It is the synonymous term. It's just that in the Old Testament, before Messiah became the only begotten son, see, he was not begotten yet. Messiah existed from forever, but he became the only begotten son when he humbled himself to be born as a baby in the womb of a woman and the seed of the Father. So when he became the only begotten son, that's when Gabriel said, you're going to call his name Yahushua, for he's going to save his people from their sins. It was indicative of his position as the savior of the nation. But before that, before he became the begotten son, his name, Mikael, one like the Most High. That's what Mikael means. One like the Most High. He is not the Most High. Let's make that very plain. Messiah is not the Father. He is below the Father, but he is power, a representative to us of the Father. Does everybody understand that? Because that confuses a lot of people. He represents the Father to us. Okay? He is not the Father. There is one Father. There is one God. That is Yah, the Most High. But Messiah represents him to us. And through Messiah, we come to our Father. Messiah actually points us to our Father. So Messiah will stand up. Will stand up for where? He says, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. What does that mean? He stands for the children of thy people. Well, we know Messiah at this point is our high priest in the sanctuary that is in the heavenly sky, somewhere in the third heaven. That he is a high priest in the sanctuary there, and that he is interceding for his people. He said he standeth for the children of thy people. He's not interceding for everybody. He's interceding for the children of thy people. And in this regard, the earth owes its continued existence to the 144,000 in the Israelite nation that they are abusing. Because if it wasn't for the Israelite nation's connection to the Father in this high priestly ministry of the Messiah, if it wasn't that he was still developing them, in fact, when he is finished, it's going to be all over for the sinners of this earth. It's going to be all over for sin and sinners on this earth. Okay. But he stands for the children of thy people. And when he stands up, see, now he sits at the right hand of the Father, interceding for us. But when he stands up, that means his intercessory ministry will have been completed. He stood up once before. He stood up when he gave the signal that he was going to destroy our fathers and destroy the nation of city of Jerusalem and scatter us as he prophesied through Africa and then throughout the earth. Scatter us, which he did. Okay. But that was at that time. Then he sat back down and he became the high priest, and he was still interceding. And then now he's going to stand up a second time. This time, there's no sitting back down in that position. And when he's finished, we're going to have the plagues hit the earth, and there will be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation. The 7 last plagues that are to hit this earth are going to do what the Bible describes as cause the earth to reel to and fro like a drunkard. The plagues that are going to hit this earth are going to be terrible. And man cannot do anything about it. They cannot control it. And it's going to be horrible. But it says here very plainly, thy people shall be delivered. Every one that shall be found written in the book. Well, what book? The book we've been talking about all along, the book of life. The book of life that is mentioned in Daniel chapter 7. The book of life that is mentioned in Revelation chapter 5. The book that's being unsealed in the 7 seals. The book of life. The book that is mentioned in Revelation chapter 20. The book of life that is also mentioned by the Most High and Moses in the book of Exodus. Yeah, no, they can't. They can try a lot of things. Whatever they're touching, that's why he said he's gonna make a new heaven and a new earth. Whatever sinful man has touched has to be fixed, has to be clean, has to be clean. He's gonna make a new heaven and a new earth. So we know the first and second heaven have been polluted by man. He's gonna make it all. He's gonna redo that whole thing. He's gonna fix this earth. That's why it says, we read in Isaiah. Remember, we said it says what it said about us. We're gonna restore. We're gonna rebuild the old waste places. We're gonna restore the foundations of many generations. We're gonna make it paths to dwell in. All of that we're gonna do. That's during the 1,000-year period. All that's gonna happen during the 1,000-year period. All of that's gonna happen. We're going to talk more about that as we get closer to the end of the book of Revelation. As a matter of fact, I have been talking, I'm going to discussing this with my Heavenly Father and our Heavenly Father and with my wife. And I'm thinking about, after we study Revelation, to go into the book of Ezekiel. Very, very powerful, very heavy book, the book of Ezekiel. Powerful in its content. And of course, lots of revelation in Ezekiel and lots of Ezekiel and Revelation, just like we talk about Daniel. We're going to say more about that later. Okay, so everyone that's found written in the book of life will be delivered during this great time of trouble that's coming. And then we read verse 2, many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life and some to shame and everlasting contempt. Messiah also taught us, he said there's going to be 2 resurrections. They that have done good to the resurrection of life, they that have done evil to the resurrection of damnation. Also, Revelation says, blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power. And they shall be priests of Yahweh and of Messiah, and they shall reign with Messiah 1,000 years. Praise the Most High Yah. So this is reference to the resurrection. There are other references to the resurrection in Isaiah. There's references to the resurrection in Job, in the Psalms. There's different areas where the resurrection is mentioned. This is one of them. This one shows us the first and the second resurrection. Then also and of course there's reference in Ezekiel as well. Then now let's start here at verse 3, and let's read. I'm going to just read verse 3. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. You see, brothers and sisters, on this earth, you and I know the people on this earth that receive renown, that are revered on this earth. Tell me if I'm lying to you, tell me. The people that receive renown and fame and reverence on this earth generally are people that are rich and powerful, right? People that are rich and powerful receive renown, receive honor and glory, right? Isn't that true? And people that are rich and powerful, generally speaking, receive honor and glory. People that are entertainers, right? Actors, actresses, musicians, especially musicians, because musicians, music has power in it. There's no question. I think anybody knows that. I mean, all you have to do is listen to music. Music has power in it. There's a type of music for every person on the earth that has some effect on you. Music has power, and so we revere musicians. We do. We revere musicians. When we get to the kingdom, the Most High is going to revere the heavenly musicians. Praise the Most High, yeah. Okay. But here in verse 3, it says, they that be wise. And the translation, a Hebrew translation or Aramaic translation in verse 3 for wise is the word teachers. They that be teachers shall shine as the brightness of the firmament. And they that turn many, that means the teachers of the righteousness of the Most High, that turn people to the righteousness of the Most High, to his commandments, statutes, and judgment. Who would that be? First and foremost is his Israelite nation. First and foremost, it's his Israelite nation. It's his people. He intends. Remember what we read just a few minutes ago. He said, ye shall be unto me a nation of priests and ministers. Why is that? It was the intent of the Most High that the kingdom of Israel should be a nation that knows him in such a way and knows his truth, which has been revealed to them. The Bible says, what advantage has the Jew? Much in every way. Why? Because unto them were committed the oracles of the Most High. They should teach the other nations the truth. They should teach the other nations about the true creator. You see it's all gotten backwards now. You can see it's all turned away backwards because we live in a Eurocentric society. And as I said earlier, Europeans want to take credit for everything. This is why in this particular movement, and I'm not trying to be prejudiced. Most High knows my heart. I'm not trying to be prejudiced. Not trying to be racist. We can't be racist. We don't have the power to be racist. That's another people think people get all confused. Only people with power can be racist because they can exercise their power to make their racism mean something. But we can't have Caucasian people leading this movement. I just trying to tell you, we cannot. See, I'm leery of any person. When a Caucasian person comes into the message, we praise the Most High. We praise the Most High when a Caucasian patient comes into the message and is grafted into the Israelite nation. Praise the Most High, yeah. But don't come in here thinking now it's time for you to lead. See, that's the problem. They've been leading things for 2,000 years, and they got this inherent view with because of that every movement that happens that's moving, they got to be the leaders. No. You are not the bloodline of Abraham. Step back. And this is the thing. This is going to help separate the Europeans that are going to survive. The Bible talks about Europeans that escape. That's the ones that are going to survive what's coming. They're going to survive because they have humbled themselves and learned the truth at the mouth of the true Hebrew Israelite prophets that the Most High is raising up right now. Okay, he's raising up the prophets right now. He's raising up the 144,000 right now. He's training them. And those that humble themselves to listen to what these men are being called to say, those are the ones that will escape. Those that think they're going to lead a movement, that they're going to lead this last day movement, those are just like dozens and dozens and dozens of their brothers and cousins before them that led movements and led man-made movements. Because the Israelites gave the Gentiles the truth with the Apostle Paul and the 12 apostles and the Israelites that came after them. They gave the Gentiles the truth. And for a couple of centuries, the Gentiles were following that truth. But then all of a sudden, Constantine came and them brothers turned the truth into a lie. And that's why you got Christianity. That's why you got Christianity under Constantine. Then you got the Roman Catholic Church, and boom, there we are right now. You got all these little offshoots of Rome. All these offshoots of Rome are basically all of these churches that broke out of the Catholic Church. Protestants, this dude came out, this Archbishop Tony something came up, he died, but he came out and he's like, y'all need to come back home. Y'all need to come back home. Because all y'all came out from the Catholic Church, and he wasn't lying. That was the truth. Yeah, Tony Palmer, that was his name. He died, but he said, all y'all need to come back home. All y'all just come out of Rome, and he ain't lying. See, he ain't lying. All these Christian churches are just offshoots of their mother Rome. Okay, and that's what happens when you let Gentiles lead the movement. That's what happens. You get paganism. You get Sunday worship. You get white Jesus. That's what happens. Okay. So that's why I'm saying to you, this is a test for the European man. He's got to humble himself from his position of authority, from his privileged position that he has had now for 2,000 years. He's got to humble himself. And that's why the people that are of better economic standing on this earth, the Caucasian people, they're gonna have a hard time. You remember what the Messiah said? Remember what the Messiah said? He said, hardly shall a rich man enter the kingdom. Isn't that what? I'm not making that up. Messiah said, hardly shall a rich man enter the kingdom. That's what he said. That's why y'all Europeans that are poor, y'all living in trailer parks, y'all living in the same neighborhoods we living in, you should be blessed. You should be thankful. You have opportunity, because you're not going to be tempted with this world's goods. You're not going to be tempted with Federal Reserve notes to think that you're going to get ahead with Federal Reserve notes. Federal Reserve notes going to cause a lot of people to be lost in this earth. No question about it. So they that be wise, they that be teachers, shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars to the Creator. The true stars of this earth are the people that teach righteousness. And I'm gonna tell you straight up, the people that teach righteousness are going to be poor. You see, capitalism makes most people poor. You understand? Capitalism makes most people poor. You think because you could, check this out. Check this out. Who's got more? Who is even in a capitalistic society? Who has more net worth? A person that lives on the street, doesn't owe anybody anything, right, and gets food out of garbage cans, or a person that's $1 billion in debt and lives in a mansion? Who is worth more? Who has more? Really, who is worth more? Isn't the dude that has no debt, that doesn't owe anybody anything, and is getting his food for free? Isn't he wealthier than the guy that owes $1 billion? But you see, we got this all backwards, right? So we could go to a car dealership and buy us a luxury car on credit. We can go get a nice house on credit, right? And then we think we got something, and what we really got is debt. And then you try to educate yourself to make yourself get better, right? Because every time you get your degrees and you do all that, what do you get with all those degrees? You know what you get? More debt. That's what you get. More debt. So when you live in this earth, in this capitalistic society, you're poor, especially if you're considered middle class. That means you have a moderate income, you have a home somewhere, or you rent somewhere, you have a car, you work regularly. You're poor because you owe more than what you owe. Especially you buy a house, you owe more than what you're making. You owe more than what you're making, man. You're poor. In Bible times, you were basically a slave, because you are so. People in Bible times became slaves in one of three ways. They became slaves because another nation came into that land and took over and made the people slaves. They became slaves because they were in debt. They were in debt. Or they became slaves because somebody snatched you out your country, like they did to Joseph, and took you to their country, and you became their slave, or like they did to us. So, when you're in debt, you become a slave, and you got to work your way out of that debt. So basically, in a capitalistic society, the majority of the people are slaves, and they are poor because we all owe. You understand? You eat all, unless you living off somebody, and that's worse. I got relatives that do that. They live off of other relatives. They don't work. They live off of other relatives. They just gave up. Okay. If you working and you out here trying to hustle to eat, you owe. You owe. Okay. That's the way it is. But in the kingdom, the Most High does not look upon things like that. His kingdom will not be a kingdom of debt. Okay. His people that are the chosen people, his people that are the exalted people, are humble people, meek people. Yes, humble and meek. They're humble and meek. Yes, patient people. Yes, and filled with the righteousness of the Spirit of the Father. And they teach. And they don't have a lot of this earth's good. They don't stack dollar bills with your Federal Reserve notes on top in some bank somewhere. They don't have it. They just don't have it. But what they do have is the Father's Spirit of truth. That's what they do have. Praise the Most High. They that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. Praise the Most High Yah. There are many people that you're going to see in the kingdom that you never saw before. You don't know who these people is that the Most High is exalting like this. You want to know who these people are that the Most High is exalting. These were humble teachers that died somewhere. Teachers, master teachers that you never heard of. People that would teach in poor neighborhoods, teach the young people, try to teach the people like Malcolm X, or people that teach and didn't make any money, wasn't after any money. Not that many of them. Not that many of them. But they were master teachers and sent from the master. Praise the Most High, yeah. And at the end, as we are, there's going to be 144,000 of them. Going to be 144,000 of them. Praise the Most High. Let's continue. Verse 4. Verse 4. Daniel chapter 12, verse 4. But thou, Daniel, and again, as we said last night, this is Gabriel talking to Daniel. Gabriel is telling Daniel these things, and that started back in chapter 10 of Daniel. We went through that last night, but I just wanted to give you that heads up. This whole scenario is one scenario from chapter 10 all the way through the end of the book. And Gabriel is talking to Daniel in this scene right here. So Gabriel is saying to Daniel, but thou, O Daniel, shut up the books and shut up the words and seal the book even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. You see, Daniel is being told that the things that he has been shown, everything that he has been shown, from when he was shown Nebuchadnezzar's dream, from when he was shown Belshazzar's writing on the wall, everything he was shown, the 2,300 days, the 70 weeks, and here, the time of trouble, everything he was shown is to be sealed up until the time of the end. That's got to be frustrating. I mean, Daniel had to be a frustrated prophet. I mean, he really did, because here he was as a captive, and he heard the prophetic message from the prophet Jeremiah. He quoted about it, and he said that where Jeremiah said, "You're only going to be captives in Babylon for 70 years, and I'm bringing you back to the land. I'm bringing you back to the land of the 70 years." The 70 years came, and then what happened? People started getting comfortable in Babylon. I say people started getting comfortable in Babylon, started actually acting like they were citizens of Babylon, and didn't want to go back to the land. And the Most High had to raise up Haggai the prophet and Zechariah the prophet. He had to raise up Ezra. He had to raise up Nehemiah to wake the people up and remember who you are. This ain't your home. Go back to the land where you came from. This ain't your home. You got to go back. And finally they went back. And Daniel was concerned, and he started praying. That's what Daniel 9 is about, if you recall. Oh yeah. So Daniel, and then remember, he showed Daniel all kinds of things, and then it came to the 2,300 evenings and mornings and the prophecy regarding that and the cleansing of the sanctuary, and he did not mention Israel at all. And Daniel, the Bible says Daniel was sick because he wanted to know. It's like somebody giving you the story, but you get to the punchline of the story and they say, well, I ain't gonna tell you the rest of it. What? You got to tell me the rest. Come on, you got to tell me the rest. Most I said, no, wait. So then he had Gabriel come and show him some other things. And here at the end of the book, after all of this, he tells Daniel, this book is going to be sealed. Like, you understand some things in here, Daniel, but I'm not going to let everybody else know until the time of the end. This thing is sealed until the time of the end. Nobody's going to understand this book and the prophecies about it until it's time. It's time of the end. People are going to be running to and fro. People are going to be searching the earth for different things, and knowledge is going to be increased. And like I said, a lot of people read this, and I was taught to read it this way. Knowledge in general, computers, satellites, planes, discoveries, things that we're learning, and all that information age in which we're in. This is the most valuable commodity that there is on the earth right now. It's information. Isn't that crazy? I mean, people will steal information. People are stealing information every day, and information is the most important thing on the earth. People are trying to get rich from gathering and stealing and learning and having information. We're in information age, but that's not what the Most High is dealing with. He had just said in the verse before, talking about they that are wise or teachers, teaching and leading many to righteousness. What knowledge is going to be increased? Knowledge of the word is going to be increased. The unsealed book of the prophecies of Daniel is going to be increased. Knowledge of the scriptures, knowledge of prophecy is going to be increased. Increased how? The only way we learn anything of holy eternal value, listen carefully, is by the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, or the set apart Spirit of the Father. That's how we learn things. It's not because we're smart. See, don't get caught up in this Eurocentric idea that we're so smart, that we're just so knowledgeable in science. Science is backed by science. We got so many scientific studies. Don't get caught up in that, Israel. Knowledge comes from the Creator. All knowledge comes from the Creator. True knowledge. And His Spirit inspires us and teaches us and guides us in things that we wouldn't even know before. That's where it comes from, see? And we, in order to gain that knowledge, what He's asking from us is for us to humbly come before Him in a repentant spirit, to give Him the honor, the glory, and the praise. See, man's knowledge is about giving man the praise, the honor, and the glory. Because Satan told Adam and Eve, you could be gods. And most of the earth is after that one. They all want to be God. They all want to be discoverers, creators, and get glory. But the people that belong to the Most High Yah, and there are not a lot of them, understand that this thing is not about us at all. It's all about the glory of the Father alone. And the knowledge that we will obtain and are obtaining is based on His Spirit, not by might. Remember the scripture, remember what the prophet Zechariah said. Zechariah. Remember what Zechariah said. Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, said the Most High. Right? Not by might, by power. So by His Spirit. And so Daniel is frustrated because this thing can't get out until the time of the end when knowledge will be increased. Why? Because there's going to be people at the end where we live right now, that are seeking the Father simply for the Father's glory. There are people out here that have been raised in all kinds of different religious backgrounds, from atheism to spiritualism to Catholicism to the different denominations to Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, Islam of different sects. People that come from all kinds of backgrounds, and from all of these people, there are among all of these people those that are seeking truth. Among all of these, there are people that are seeking truth. There are people that have an understanding that they're not stupid to know that they didn't just explode into existence by and of themselves. They knew that there's some creator, some intelligent design behind everything. They can understand that. And even in the most ignorant person, they know. That's why the Bible says, they that say there is no Most High, no creator, is a fool. Because you can just see, just in looking at everything the way it exists, it's something intelligent behind it. If you understand, if you see even how a baby is born, what happens in the body, they still discover. You so science don't even know the half of how the body works. They don't even know the half. And I'm saying, just looking at that, you understand there's an intelligence behind it, that there's got to be a creator. And those people that are honestly seeking out for that creator, he knows who they are and he will find them. And he will find them. And he will reveal himself to them. And he's doing it. That's why we say knowledge is increasing. And of course, we understand, as we read earlier this morning, not only in Deuteronomy 30, but in many, many verses, there's many witnesses to this. There's many scriptures that witness this. There's going to be an awakening of the children of Israel that have been scattered because of the sins of our fathers. We've been scattered all over the earth, and there's going to be a general awakening, which is now taking place. It is happening as I'm speaking to you. There is an awakening taking place. And in fact, like we said, they even got a slang term out for it. You see, Hebrews are creative people. I don't know why the Most High placed that in us, but there's just a creative people. And so they got this term that came out with it: stay woke. You might have heard some Hebrews say that. You know, you might call them African Americans, but really they just say that. They say stay woke. What does that mean? That means they understand that people are waking up, that our eyes are being opened, and they're saying to each other, encouraging each other to stay awake. Don't fall back to sleep. Stay awake. Open your eyes. See? This young man, 19 years old, this athlete, I won't name him because I'm not trying to give glory to that, but I'm just saying, there was a young man, 19 years old. They asked him about the 4th of July. He said he's a Hebrew. He said, no, I'm not observing the 4th of July. He said, my people were enslaved in the 4th of July. He said, we weren't independent. We didn't get no independence in 1776. We were getting the whip. He's right. But that's because he's woke. He's waking up. Waking up. And that awakening is ongoing, is continuing. Praise the Most High. Knowledge shall be increased. Now, as we said earlier, when you start at Daniel chapter 10, and when you go there when you have time, look at Daniel chapter 10. Well, let me bring you there just for this purpose. In Daniel chapter 10, Daniel, this whole thing started in Daniel 10. And I just wonder, I'm not going to read the whole Daniel 10, even though it's only 21 verses, but I'm not going to read the whole thing. I just want to read from verse 2 down to verse 8 of Daniel 10. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. I ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh nor wine in my mouth, neither did I anoint myself at all, till 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. In the 24th day of the first month, as I was by the side of the great river, which is Hiddekel, then I lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man, clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with the fine gold of Uphaz. His body also was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass. And the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude. And I, Daniel, alone saw the vision. For the men that were with me saw not the vision, but a great quaking fell upon them, so that they fled to hide themselves. Therefore I was left alone and saw this great vision. And there remained no strength in me, for my comeliness was turned in me into corruption, and I retained no strength. And as we called last night, we talked about the parallel between this description and Revelation chapter 1, where Yochanan saw Messiah, describing him almost exactly the same way. Daniel saw him, but we saw Yochanan saw him in the Revelation. He was in the holy place of the heavenly sanctuary, because John was shown first 7 golden candlesticks. But here in Daniel chapter 5, Messiah is standing, Michael is standing on the river Hiddekel. He's standing on the river. You got to remember that. He's not standing on the side of the river. He's standing on the river. And he's standing in a glorious a way so that Daniel is overwhelmed, just as Jeconiah was overwhelmed when he saw Messiah in the midst of 7 golden candlesticks. He also, the Bible says, he bowed down and he retained no strength. Same thing. So the presence and the glory of the Messiah is obviously an awesome presence, obviously. And you recall when Peter, or should I say Kapha, and James and John, which is Kapha, Yakan, and Yaakov, when they went up with Messiah into a mountain and he started praying, and the Bible says a cloud came and his clothes became white, and they all bowed down and they didn't know what to do. They just bowed down with their faces to the ground, and they saw Moses and Elijah standing with him. So apparently, when he gets like that, when he gets in the glorious scene like that, his presence causes a reaction, cause you to lose strength. So this is the man that stands on the river. This is Mikael. Okay, so now back to Daniel 12. Daniel is going to be, this is going to be referenced in verse 5. Okay, verse 5 and 6. Notice what it says. Daniel chapter 12, verse 5 and 6. Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, there stood other 2, the one on this side of the bank of the river, and the other on that side of the bank of the river. And one said to the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders? When is this stuff going to end? So you have 2 angels that appear, 2 messengers, one on one side of a river. River is a big piece of water now. One on the other side of a river, and you have Makaal in linen with golden girdle around him, and he's in glorious form, obviously, looking like polished brass. And of course, Yakana said as if it were burned in the furnace. And now they see him, and one asked him a question in Daniel's hearing. The one asked him a question. They do this often. They ask questions in the hearing of the prophet so the prophet can learn something. So one of the 2 messengers asked Messiah something while he was standing on the river. He said, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders? When is this stuff going to end? When is all of this going to be put to an end? When is this actually going to take place so that the kingdom will come? When is this? You remember what the disciples asked Messiah? One of the last things you see them ask Messiah. Remember that? He said, wilt thou at this time restore the kingdom to Israel? Remember that? That was Acts chapter 1. See, they had been hanging out with the Messiah for 40 days after his resurrection, and he was about to be taken up, him with the people that were resurrected with him. They were going to be taken up into the kingdom. And they asked the question, will thou at this time restore the kingdom? That's the big question. You see, brothers and sisters, all the prophets prophesy about the kingdom of Israel being restored. Right? Ezekiel prophesies about it. Daniel prophesies about it. Jeremiah, Isaiah, Zephaniah, Zechariah, all of these prophets prophesy. David, the king, prophesied about it. All of them prophesy about the restoration, the eternal existence of the kingdom being the kingdom of Israel, being led by the Messiah. Okay, everybody understand that, right? So everybody wants to know, right, including these 2 angels, which are really just talking so that Daniel can hear, when are we going to get into the kingdom? When is the kingdom going to start? So now, the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, he's going to answer them. Daniel chapter 12, verse 7. Notice what it says. Daniel chapter 12, verse 7. And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he had held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and in half, when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. Now, I want you to recall a couple of things, if you will. If you remember what the Messiah said when he was prophesying about the destruction of Jerusalem, and he said in Luke chapter 21, he said, Well, let's read it. Let's come back to Daniel 2. Let's look at Luke chapter 21 real quick. Luke chapter 21. Luke chapter 21. Come right back to Daniel. Luke chapter 21. Luke chapter 21. And let's look at verse. He's talking about the time. He's talking about the time of Jerusalem's destruction and what his followers should do when they see certain signs. So let's start at verse 20 and let's go down to verse 24. Okay, Luke chapter 21 from verse 20 to 24. We'll come back to Daniel 12:7 right after this. Notice again, and when ye shall see, Messiah said, Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereunto. For these be days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. For there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. What people? The Israelite people. Wrath upon this people. There shall be great distress in the land of Israel, and wrath upon this people, that is our fathers. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. That's our people. And the Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So he was given the prophecy that our people were going to be scattered, taken captive into all nations, that Jerusalem was going to be destroyed. And he was going to say that then he's going to begin the times of the Gentiles. That means the Gentiles' dominance until their dominance time is fulfilled. And here in Daniel chapter 12, verse 8, he said, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times and a half, when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished, right? That's right. That's exactly right. So what we are seeing and what you're going to notice, and this is what we have to understand, there's a spiritual war. There's always a spiritual war that's more dangerous, more powerful, more deadly than the physical wars. There's a spiritual war going on. Satan is trying to destroy the holy people. He's trying to destroy the seed of Abraham. He's trying to destroy them because he knows that from among them there's going to come the 144,000. He knows this. Okay, so don't expect to be treated fairly. Don't expect, just because you mind your business riding down the street, somebody's not going to harass you. Don't expect just because you mind your business, not bothering anybody, that somebody's not going to try to kill you. The Satan hates the royal people. I say the royal people, the children of Israel, the true children of Israel, especially the males. He will even have the females trying to help the Caucasian man destroy the males. Okay, this is what we have right now. Okay. So, and the reason for all of that, that's right, we should expect them. And the reason for all of that is because Satan well knows that is now we just read the prophecies where the power of the Gentiles is going to come to an end. The ending of the power, listen carefully to me now. I want to make sure you can hear me. The power of the Gentiles coming to an end is coinciding with the awakening of the Israelites. So the decline of the power of the Gentiles is going to start to happen, and is starting to happen with the awakening of the Israelites. Why? Because the awakening of the Israelites is what's going to bring in the Messiah's kingdom, especially the sealing of the 144,000. Especially that. So there's a spirit among the Gentiles that you can see. That's why they elected Donald Trump president. That's why they're going crazy like that. They may not understand what I just said in terms of prophecy, but they can feel that there's a change in the air. Sometimes you can just feel it. You know what I'm saying? when I was coming up, I used to like to watch cartoons sometimes, and I like to watch Spider-Man. And when Spider-Man was in trouble, you know what he used to say? Spidey senses tingling. That's what he used to say. He used to say, you know what? My Spidey senses are tingling. In other words, I sense trouble. And what's going on, brothers and sisters, right now among the Gentiles is they are sensing something is happening. They're sensing that their power is being diminished. They're sensing, and it's starting with the poor of them, the poorer ones. They start to understand those that are rejecting this message of truth that we're giving and not humbling themselves and staying in their stubbornness and ignorance and still yearning for that white privilege. They're sensing something is wrong. And they're sensing something is bad is coming. They can sense it. See? And what we're sensing is an awakening. It's all in the air, brothers and sisters. It's in the air. It's an awakening. Just like if you ever walk into a place and you walk into a place and there's tension in the air and you can feel it. Nobody's saying anything, but you can feel it. There's tension in the air. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you walk into a place or you with some people and something happened. I don't know if you don't know if somebody just had a fight. You don't know if somebody cursed somebody out. You don't know what happened, but you can feel there's tension in the air. Well, brothers and sisters, that's no coincidence. When there's some things happening, there's an awakening going on, and the Gentiles are feeling that their time is coming to an end. And that is why all the events that are going to take place at the end are going to be really the Gentiles in a desperate move to try to maintain their power and authority, and Asatan trying to crush the awakening and try to crush the Israelites. You're going to see all kinds of things happen as a result of that. And that's one of these things. That's why you see in these rallies with these KKK dudes. That's why you're seeing all these people going crazy at these Trump rallies. You can see it happening. There's an energy out there. And you know what? I don't expect Mr. Trump to be president for long, but the energy is not going to go away. The energy is not going to go away. All he's doing is using it to gain power for himself. But the energy is already out there. The energy is already out there. That spirit is already out there. They can feel it. And why? Because the Bible tells us their time is coming to an end. And what did the Messiah say in Daniel 12:7? Can we post that one more time? Daniel 12:7. Let's read that one more time. Let's look at that. And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and in half, when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. Let's break this down. Time is a year. If you look it up, it will say a year. Times is plural, 2 years. You have 1 year, you have 2 years, that's 3 years. Half of a year, 3.5 years. Okay, so now you have prophetic time and you have literal time. Listen to me carefully. So each one, 3.5 years in the Hebrew calendar, is 1,260 days. That's 18 months in the Hebrew calendar. I'm sorry, that's not 18 months. I'm sorry, that's incorrect. 3.5 years is 54 months. No, 42 months. Man, my math is off today. Most High, please guide my head, guide my spirit, that I might not bring confusion to your word. In the name of Yahweh Shah Mashiach, I pray. Amen. 3.5 years is 42 months. 1,260 days. Okay. There's going to be a 1,260 day period at the end where we live right here. There's going to be a 3.5 year period. That's the time of trouble that's going to come upon the earth. 3.5 years. We're going to talk more about that. Okay, we'll talk more about that. Okay, but there's also a prophetic time of 1,260 years. Okay, and now we're talking about the power that is given to the Gentiles to scatter the power of the holy people. We're talking about, as we already talked about, we studied, and Daniel 11 will break it out, but we didn't really study Daniel 11. But Daniel 11 talks about the rise of the Roman Catholic Church, along with Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, Daniel chapter 8, Daniel chapter 8 also, right? Along with the book of Revelation, it talks about the rise of the Roman Catholic Church. Okay? It calls it the little horn. Some people will say, and I can understand what people will say this, and we could easily break it down for them. Some people might say, well, nowhere in the Bible does it ever mention a Catholic. Does it say anything about Catholic? Well, you know, they're right. It doesn't. It doesn't say anything about Catholic, right? It doesn't say, the word Catholic is not in the Bible anywhere. The word Pope is not in the Bible anywhere, is it? No, it's not there. So what does it say? How are we pointing this to Rome? What does it say? What it shows us is that there's a fourth kingdom that comes after the kingdom of the Greek Empire. That is a kingdom that's based in Rome. It shows us this in the Bible, that is based in Rome. And that first, this kingdom will be a pagan kingdom, but then later on, there will be a religious element that is worldwide in its power, based in Rome. So let me ask you, what common sense does it take when you're here in the world and somebody tells you there's a power in Rome that is worldwide in its influence and is religious in its power? I mean, how many different churches are like that? Like that? Do we have to spell it out for you? Huh? There you go. So it speaks of the Roman Catholic Church as the great whore, as the little horn. And this is so we have to understand, how did the Roman Catholic Church, when did it come about? What's the history? This is the European history we need to know. So we understand, right? We understand, as we read the third church, Pergamos, that it said that there was Balaam. Somebody with the spirit of Balaam came out in the third church. And if you understand, and let me say his name properly, Balaam. If you understand Balaam and what he did, Balaam was paid money to put a curse on the chosen people. He was paid money, but he had been given the gift of prophecy. He was a servant of Yah at first, but then he sold out his faith. He sold his gift for money. And he ended up getting killed by the Israelites. He ended up being slaughtered with the Midianites, as he deserved. Well, Revelation brings up his name again and says, Balaam. You have them that teach the doctrine, the teaching of Balaam. What does that mean? That means you got people that are selling out their faith for worldly position, for worldly gain, for worldly empire, for worldly fame. You got people that's selling out their gifts that's been given to them. What gifts? The Israelite people, Kapha, Yakanan, Yaakov, the 12 apostles, basically. And then you had others like Silas, Barnabas. You had others, Ananias, Sapphira. You had others, the apostle Shaul. You had people that brought to the Gentiles the precious words of the oracles of truth. And for a couple of centuries, they were with it until all the Hebrews died. And the apostles died, and the Hebrews after them died. Then around that third or fourth generation, they started tripping. And they start mixing. And that's why the Bible says the mystery of iniquity doth work. Doth already work. That's what it's talking about in 2 Thessalonians. It's talking about the declension of the pagan Rome and the rise of the paper Rome. It hadn't been paper Rome in Paul's time, but you can see it starting to develop. And how they were trying to bring this Christianity. Right? So then Constantine came at that time, and he decided to try to make a deal. I'll become a Christian. He said, I'm going to become a Christian. The word Christian was not used among the Israelite people. The word Christian is only mentioned 3 times in the entire Bible. It is mentioned because the Gentiles and the heathen would call the followers of the Messiah Christian. It wasn't what we called each other. It was what the pagans and the heathen called the followers of the Messiah. The followers of the Messiah called each other brother, sister, Ak or Akah. The followers of the Messiah called each other disciples because they were following Messiah, the master that was leading them to the Father. Okay? Praise the Most High, Akah Kimmy. You were ahead of me because I didn't stop until about maybe 10 years ago. Maybe 10, 11 years ago. I said, yeah. You're ahead of me. Praise the Most High. But here come Constantine with this Christianity, and that was the beginnings of it. Then, this is historically now, 508 AD. This is what I mentioned last night. You had to look at this date. 508 AD. AD, right? That is after the Messiah. 508 AD. The king of France declared that the bishop of Rome is the corrector of all heretics. 508 AD. Okay? That was the rise of the little horn right there. 508 AD. Okay? Okay? Now, not everybody was with that. Because what happened in Europe, all of them people were pagans. They all pagans, right? There were no holy people in Europe. They were all pagans of different sorts. And basically, they had their tribes. See, Japhet had tribes too. The Anglo-Saxons, those are tribes. You know, the Alemanni was a tribe. You had different tribes. The Ostrogoths, the Visigoths, the Heruli, all of these were different tribes of pagans, of sons of Japhet that were in Europe. And not all the tribes were with this new thing called Christianity. They weren't all with it. But apparently the leadership, the rich and powerful wanted it. So what happened, anybody that would resist the change, that would resist the authority of the Bishop of Rome was destroyed. And what you end up having is you had three of these Caucasian tribes. I believe it was the Visigoths, I believe it was the Ostrogoths, and I believe it was the Heruli. I think it was them three, but you could check me on that. I think it was the Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, and Heruli. They end up being destroyed by the leaders and military powers of the other nations because they would not give in to this new religion, Christianity. They wanted to keep their paganism or their form of paganism. And that's why I said in Daniel 8 that he shall, it says in Daniel 8, we read it earlier, it says he shall, what did it say? It says, and power shall be given him against the daily. Power shall be given to the little horn against the daily. That is against all other forms of paganism. Power is going to be given him against all other forms of paganism. That's why I can confidently say to you that any other religion on this earth is under the control of the Roman Catholic Church. Because Bible says in Daniel 8, power will be given him against the daily by reason of transgression. Because they all pagan, the Most High gonna let the pagan, the king pagan, take over all of them. Okay? So in 538 AD, it was a 30-year skirmish among the Europeans. There were 30 years where they were where them three different European tribes, the Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, and the Heruli, were fighting against the Roman Catholic Church, fighting against this power. And then in 538 AD, it was established. All the strife stopped because now the powers that were in favor of Rome won. 538 AD. And what happens now, you have from 508 AD, it's 1290 years to 1798. But we're talking about 42 months. We're talking about 1260. I may not get you confused. So from 538 AD, you take 1260 and you come to 1798, right? So if you take 538 and you add to it 1260, what you end up with is 1798. That's what you end up with. But what happened in 1798? What happened in 1798? Excuse that number there. I put that zero. I wasn't supposed to anyway. What happened in 1798? In 1798, Napoleon had started revolution in France. And I could go into more detail about the revolution, but I don't want to confuse you. Let me just keep it very high level above, so that we can just go into the basics of this thing. I can go into more deeper detail about that revolution, but let's just stop it right there. And let me tell you, in 1798, Berthier, a general from Napoleon's army, literally walked into the Vatican and arrested the Pope and put him in jail. 1798. The Bible calls this the deadly wound. There would be another pope that would come after that, and it would come back. But at that point, what that meant, see, Napoleon and them wasn't into religion at all. They worshipped, listen carefully, what Napoleon and them in Europe started, and this is the same today, what they started worshiping was the goddess of reason. That's what they started, that's what they followed. They called it the goddess of reason. That's what they worship. And you know, they made an image to the goddess of reason. Do you guys know what the image is? That is the image to the goddess of reason. That is one of the most famous landmarks in history. They made an image to the goddess of reason, and they gave it. If I tell you this, you're going to know what it is. They gave this image to the United States as a gift. They gave this image of the goddess of reason to the United States as a gift. The goddess of reason. Do you know what that is? It's called the Statue of Liberty. Huh? Y'all ever heard of that? Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor. That's the goddess of reason. That's the goddess of reason. Okay? That came from France because that's what Napoleon and them followed, the goddess of reason. And so they didn't want to follow no Catholic church. That's why they went and arrested him. So basically, in a political manner, you see, before, in the political manner, the Pope and Rome dominated Europe in both not just religious terms, but in political terms, in economic terms. But there was a wound in that, even though Rome maintained millions of followers that did not go away as a result of this revolution, its political power was wounded. It did not have the same juice on a political level that it had once had after 1798. Okay? Y'all are listening to me, right? So after 1798, did not have the political juice that it once had, right? After 1798. Then 1844 comes, and we know what happens in 1844. Messiah goes into the most holy place, right? And then the devil starts immediately starting to gather back his girl, Rome, back into her position. In 1929, look that up, 1929, Mussolini made what they call a concordat with the Pope of Rome. And this concordat, what I mean by concordat, it's an agreement whereby Mussolini tells the Pope, I'm going to allow the Vatican to become its own country inside Italy. And that's what they did. So Mussolini allowed the Pope of Rome to become the leader of his own country inside Italy. So that the Vatican now has, and that's why you see the headline of the paper. If you look at the headline from October 1929, it will say deadly wound healed, because the deadly wound was healed, because that's when now the Pope already had religious power, but now he has gained back political power. And that's necessary for the end, for the prophecies to be fulfilled. So now you have, the Pope has to have political power as well as religious power. So he's the head of his state as well as the head of his church. Now, in other places, we talked about this last night, in other places, you have a religion that's the head of the church, right? You don't have one man, like there's no one man that's alive today that's the head of Islam. But there are states that are Islamic states in the world. There are countries that are Islamic countries. You see what I'm saying? In the nation of Israel, there's no one person that's the head of Judaism, or in Brooklyn for that matter. There's no one person that's the head of Judaism. Okay? But you have the nation, the state of Israel is a nation that follows Judaism. You understand what I'm saying? So you cannot go to the state of Israel and try to push Islam. You cannot go to the state of Israel and try to push Christianity. You cannot go to the state of Israel and claim you're an Israelite, although some people did that and got a little piece of land or whatever they did, whatever compromise they had to make. But really and truly, the Israelite people cannot be there right now, even though they want to. We're going to, but we're going to be there when the Messiah come and bring us there and destroys all of them. And we're going to get to that in the scriptures. But that's what's going on. The only entity that has an actual man at its head is the Roman Catholic Church, the Vatican. So whoever occupies the office of the Pope is the head of his church and the head of his state. And he's worldwide in his influence. Okay, so now after 1798, the power of Rome there was a check placed on it in 1798. But it will be restored, and it has been, because it has to be before the destruction of it. It has to be, and that's what we see. That's why he said times and a half. So you had 1260 from 538 AD. Okay? From 538 AD, you go to 1798. And remember, this whole thing started with a decree that was made in 508 AD. Decree was made 508 AD, and it was established by 538 AD. Okay? All right? Now, Daniel was listening when Messiah said this. He was listening, but he didn't understand what was going on. So let's look at this Daniel chapter, and he didn't understand when it began like we do now, because it was for us to understand, not for Daniel to understand. But let's continue. Daniel chapter 12, let's verse 8 and 9 and 10. Daniel 12, verse 8 and 9 and 10. Notice what it says. And I heard, but I understood not, Daniel says. Then said I, O my master, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. The wise. Who are the wise? The wise that are understand, the teachers shall understand. The wise shall understand. That is the teachers, those that are been refined, those that teach righteousness, his chosen people. They will understand. See, let me break this down for you. The Most High is going to give clear understanding to the Israelite people that are being awakened. There are people before us that started to open these books, started to open Daniel. European people started opening Daniel, start studying it. But he's going to give us even clearer insight than anybody prior. Because it's prophesied, the wise shall understand. They that turn many to righteousness. These are teachers. These are at the end of time, before the resurrection. That's where we are. This is where we live. Many shall be purified and made white and tried. What is that? Let me ask you this. Have we been tried? Have we been pure? Have we been tried? Are we been in trial? Let me ask you that. Have we been in trial? Yes, we have. As a people, have we been in trial? Yes, we have. Yes, we have. But he's saying that the trial is for us to be purified and made white. And of course, he's not talking about white like your skin. He's talking about white like pure, like sinless, like overcoming sin. The trials in our life, I'm not going to go too deep into this, but the trials in our life that are given to us, especially the Israelite nation, are designed to bring us back to our Father, to cause us to become more solid with him, to cause us to turn our face toward him. Okay? So the trials, the murders, the unjust system that's mistreating us and putting us in situations where we're getting destroyed and imprisoned and just run through, is designed to cause us to seek the Father. Not seek no Christian church. That's the Christian church is from the people that enslaved you. Just like Islam is from the people that enslaved you. No Israelite, no so-called African American should ever be involved with a Christian church, an Islamic faith, or Judaism. All three of those people enslaved you. All three of them enslaved you. Some of them owned the ships. Some of them insured the ships. Some of them put the chains on you. Some of them castrated you. You don't be involved with the religion of your pagan slave masters. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't be involved with the religion of your pagan slave masters. The Arabs that brought that Islam, they were pagan, they still pagan. They say they believe in one God, but it is not the same one we serve. They don't have a covenant. They don't have a Messiah. They can't overcome their sin except they try by their works. It's a foolish game. That we don't bow to no stone in the Middle East, claiming because somebody stood there once. We don't do that. We even know that the Father was on Mount Sinai, and we don't be bowing to no Mount Sinai. We don't bow to Mount Sinai. Father was there, but we don't bow to that. See what I'm saying? They bow to this stone in the Middle East. That's a pagan religion. Believe me. Judaism, obviously, I don't even have to explain that. The Talmudic religion of paganism and witchcraft. And then, of course, you got Christianity. We know about that from Rome. So we don't want to be involved with any of these religions. And he's going to show his true people these things, these prophecies, revealing to us even now. He's revealing to us, and we search in the scriptures, revealing to us. And we're learning more and more each year. We're learning more and more. So it says very quick, very, very plainly here, the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand. Who are the wicked? The wicked are anybody that's not seeking to obey the commandments of Yah, not seeking to give him all the glory and honor and praise. The wicked are those people that want to give man glory in their denominations and all of their man-made religions and all of their man-made leaders. They want to give man glory. But the wise only want to give the Most High glory alone. They don't want his glory to be shared with some denomination or some Caucasian or some man somewhere or some white Jesus or even a black Jesus. They don't want his glory to be shared. The wise shall understand. The wicked are not seeking to give glory to the Father. They're not seeking to be obedient to his covenant. They're not seeking his truth. They don't care about that. They're going for self. They're going for self. Exactly. They will never understand. There's a lot of religious wicked people. There's a lot of wicked religionists. They will never understand. But the Israelite nation that's seeking the glory of the Heavenly Father, they will understand. Why? Because he's going to put his spirit upon them and cause them to understand. That's why. Because his spirit causes us to understand. Why? Because we're seeking to be prepared for his honor and his glory. We're seeking to be prepared for his honor and his glory alone. Okay. Verse 11. And from the time that the daily shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, 1,290 days. 1,290. So this is from the time that the daily taken away. That is the time that paganism is exalted. That's what we read about in Daniel chapter 8. Paganism is exalted, and all the other pagan religions are destroyed. And this one pagan religion, Catholicism, is exalted. From the time that happens, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, that is the Catholic Church. That's 1,290 years. That started in 508. So if you take 508 and you add to it 1,290, you should end up again at 1798. There you go, 1798 again. Okay, 1798. Then he says in verse, the angel tells him, he tells Daniel, that his Messiah tells Daniel in verse 12, blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305 and 30 days. Verse 12, Daniel 12:12, the 1,305 and 30 days. What's that? 1,305 and 30 days. What is that? So again, if you take 508 and you add to it 1,335 days, that equals 1843. And we know that is the doorstep of 1844. That is the doorstep right there. 18. So he says, blessed is he that comes after that time. Why? Because after that time is the time of the end. That's the 144,000. He said, blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to that time. So we are blessed because we are at that time. We're after 1844. You understand what I'm saying? We're after 1843. You hear what I'm saying? So he said, blessed are they that are waiting to that time, because that's the time at the end. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. Now he tells Daniel at the end, go thy way till the end be, for that in verse 13, but he tells Daniel, but go thou thy way to the end be, for thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of the days. That's right. And Daniel's lot, of course, is with the righteous. He's going to be in the resurrection of the righteous. He's going to stand in his lot, that is his group, with the resurrection of the righteous. Praise the Most High Yah. At the end of the day, praise the Most High. So I needed to go through this. I guess we don't have time today to go into chapter 11. So when we come back from the break, I'm going to go into chapter 10 now of Revelation. I wanted to have this background so that you'll understand as we go into chapter 10 of the book of Revelation why we went through this. You're going to see it. Okay? You're going to see it as we go through this. But we're going to take a break now. Let's have a word of prayer, and then we'll come back and study, and take a break and come back and study some more.